Hello everyone. This is chapter 18 from my contemporary romance novel Under a Namibian Sky. Naomi didn't want to be rude to Stefan, but she couldn't face him or any of the other guests at the moment. She needed the sanctuary of her room, even if only for an hour. She tried to extricate herself from his arm around her shoulders, intending to let him down gently about not joining him in a drink-fueled party. But the big man would have none of it. His voice became louder and more insistent. Auntie Elsa and Kerry, hearing the commotion behind them, turned around just in time to see Naomi trying to push Stefan away from her. Both women took a step toward Naomi. All traces of Auntie Elsa's sadness at her friend leaving suddenly gone, she raised her voice. "Stefan, please stop immediately. Naomi has work to do now. You must let her go." But Stefan only grinned at Auntie Elsa and tightened his grip on Naomi. He stuck out his chin in defiance, his voice slurring as he became even more insistent. "I'll pay for her time. I can pay for her." Auntie Elsa's eyes narrowed. "That's not how we do things here, young man. This is a decent lodge. I don't know what you're used to, but..." "But what? What can you do? As far as I can see, only you women are here. You have no authority over me. I'll have what I want, and I want to know what Luca finds so interesting about this one. I want to party with Luca's whore." Naomi couldn't believe her ears. She became incensed. She shoved even harder at the iron arm around her. But even though Stefan was much drunker than anyone had realized, his strength was overwhelming. She couldn't escape him. By now she was panting from the exertion, sweating, her hair in total disarray. The state of her seemed to spur him on even more. He laughed and pulled her off her feet, threatening to throw her over his shoulder. Naomi kicked hard, but missed connecting with him. It made Stefan laugh even louder. "I see, feisty kitty. That's what Luca liked, is it? Let's see how feisty you really are." Stefan dropped the empty Hansa beer bottle he had in his other hand and heaved Naomi over his shoulder, using both hands to hold her down. Naomi screamed. "Let me go! Let me go!" She pounded her fists on his back, but it was like steel, hard and inflexible. He appeared not to notice her efforts and ignored her protestations. Auntie Elsa stepped in front of Stefan and grabbed his chin in her hands. As she was so much shorter than him, she forced him to look down into her eyes. Her voice was firm and authoritative. "I said, let her go now!" For a moment, Stefan looked as though someone had slapped him, and he might come to his senses. Then he threw back his head. He laughed long and loud before shaking Auntie Elsa off. He took big, determined strides past her. Naomi's torso and head bounced brutally on his hard-muscled back. Just as they'd reached the corner, Naomi heard the unmistakable sound of rifles being cocked. Through the curtain of her hair hanging over her eyes, she glimpsed the upside-down camouflaged trousers and scuffed desert boots of members of the anti-poacher unit. Auntie Elsa's voice came again, firm and unafraid. "Stefan, put Naomi down this instant!" But Stefan just laughed again. "Oh, this is just getting better and better. A bunch of monkeys with pretend weapons. Let's see how that pans out, shall we?" Naomi spotted Kerry's long legs among the camouflaged trousers that encircled Stefan. She knew what had happened. While Auntie Elsa had kept Stefan's attention on her, Kerry had obviously gone to get the anti-poacher unit. They couldn't have been far after seeing off Luca and Santina. Naomi breathed a sigh of relief for the first time since her ordeal with Stefan began. Auntie Elsa addressed Otayan. "Ota?" A single shot pinged. It kicked up the dirt near Stefan's sandal-clad foot. The ground was hard here. the earth compacted by truck tires over many rain-deprived years. Stefan almost lost his balance as he jumped back. "Hey! That's real ammo! Watch what you're doing!" Auntie Elsa stepped forward again. "Let go of Naomi!" The seriousness of the situation finally appeared to penetrate Stefan's alcohol-addled brain. But instead of putting Naomi down, he shoved her off his shoulder. Stefan stood at a solid 6'6", and Naomi tumbled to the hard earth at speed. She tried to break her fall by putting out her arms. It happened so fast that no one could help her. She hit the ground with a sickening thud and a loud yelp. The moment Stefan let her go, members of the anti-poacher unit swarmed him, pinned him to the ground and cuffed his hands behind his back. But they had their hands full, as Stefan refused to give in without a fight. He was a big man, and the Herero and San men were slight by comparison, but tough. They struggled with Stefan, who kicked and head-butted anyone who came near enough. But when he tried to bite them, Otayan shoved a rag into his mouth and shackled his legs. Meanwhile, Auntie Elsa and Kerry rushed to help Naomi up. She clutched her right wrist, which took the brunt of the impact. Her knees were bleeding, and the side of her face had made contact with a stone when she fell. Naomi felt as though she was in an alternate reality. What the hell happened? First, Luca turned into an ice statue before he left, and then this ridiculous situation with Stefan. Tears burned behind her eyes, but not because she was feeling pitiful. She realized she was more than furious. Before anyone could stop her, she walked over to where Stefan was still wriggling on the ground and kicked him hard. Despite the rag in his mouth, he cried out when her boot connected with his arm. "Ouch! That hurt! I'll get you, bitch! You hear me?" Naomi walked away as quickly as she could before the urge to kick him again overtook her. She couldn't refrain from mumbling as she went, her jaw and left fist clenched. Bloody bully, bloody coward. Suddenly, everyone was there. Staff members came running toward them. More anti-poacher guards appeared like the ghosts of heat shimmers over the desert. Kerry put a protective arm around Naomi, while Auntie Elsa held up Naomi's wrist, scrutinizing it. "Darling, Kerry has called the doctor. Let's get you inside and cleaned up. I'm so sorry, Naomi, that you had to go through all this. I'll let the police deal with Stefan later." Naomi was still too angry and feeling too out of it to respond, but she nodded, feeling a massive headache threatening as she did so. Kerry was on her other side. She lifted Naomi's hair back from her face and tucked the strands behind her ears. "I've called the police already. Your Hun will be here very soon too. Are you okay, Hun?" Again, Naomi just nodded, more slowly this time, lest her headache got worse. Auntie Elsa and Kerry helped Naomi into the kitchen. The kitchen staff, in a huddle at the door, shocked into silence, parted like the Red Sea to let her through, concern for her evident in their eyes. Satisfied that his men had things under control outside, Otayan followed them into the kitchen. He got some tea towels from Chef and made a sling for Naomi to support her wrist while they waited for the doctor to arrive. Chef pulled out a chair for Naomi and handed her a mug of hot, sweet tea for the shock. Naomi took a few sips of the tea and put the mug on the table in front of her. As she sighed, she felt the tension leave her body. Carefully, she leaned back in the chair and contemplated the worried faces around her. Well, that was a first. I thought I'd seen every prince under the sun. But this is the first time I've come across one that's completely crazy, and not in a good way. Smiles and titters from those around her told Naomi they appreciated her attempt at lightening the gravity of the situation. Naomi took her tea and got up. Kerry immediately went to her friend's side. "Come on, Hun, let's get you cleaned up. You'll feel better. I think you need to lie down, don't you?" Naomi nodded again and grimaced. Her head felt like it wanted to explode. Auntie Elsa saw her reaction. "I'll get you some painkillers. Where does it hurt?" "Everywhere. But yes, Painkillers would be very welcome, thanks. I have the worst headache I think I've ever experienced. Auntie Elsa's face was white with concern. That was quite a distance you fell. You may have a slight concussion. We won't know until the doctor gets here. So yes, I agree with Kerry. Let's get you cleaned up and lying down. Auntie Elsa and Kerry manoeuvred themselves on either side of Naomi. Slowly they walked her down the long corridor to her room. Naomi inclined her head to look at Auntie Elsa. What will happen to Stefan? Auntie Elsa's lips stretched thin over her mouth. As I said, I'll have to leave that up to the police, but I hope he gets what he deserves. He can be jolly glad I'm not the one doling out punishments. I cannot believe what's happened. I've lived here all my life, I've worked here all my life, and I've never ever experienced anything like it. She stretched around Naomi to address Kerry. We have to put something in place to prevent anything like this from happening again. It will have to go on all our marketing and must be repeated to each of our guests at the time of their check-in. That will be your first task. It takes priority as the new manager of Desert Lodge, Kerry. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then Kerry gasped. You mean? Yes, Kerry, I'm sorry. I meant to have a more formal conversation about this. But with so much going on, there just wasn't the time. I was more than impressed with your presentation to Luca and Santina. I know you'll be a formidable manager for Desert Lodge, and I'll be grateful and honoured if you'd accept the position. We can do all the formal things and sign your new contract tomorrow when we discuss your benefits. Naomi and Kerry spoke simultaneously. Oh, thank you, Auntie Elsa. The young women giggled at their synchronicity. Naomi's head threatened to knock her to the floor with a sudden pain that shot across her eyes. She slowed down more. But Kerry's smile as though she'd never stop. It means the world. Thank you, Auntie Elsa. I won't let you down. I think the first thing to do would be to call Ilse at Solitaire. Stefan stayed there with them for a week. It would be interesting to find out what their experience of him was. And if I discover something similar had happened there and she didn't tell me. Auntie Elsa nodded. Yes, I agree. That's a great idea. Maybe Ilse knows something more about him. Where did he say he was from again? Kerry talked past Naomi. I checked him out after our first heated telephone conversations. He's the owner and CEO of a very successful tech company in Silicon Valley. The company is called Zawodzki Tech. I called them and pretended I wanted to interview him for the BBC. They confirmed he is who he says he is, and Lucas seemed to know about the company and about Stefan when I asked if he'd ever heard of either, although he'd never met Stefan until now. Isn't it amazing that someone as successful as Stefan can behave like this? It makes me wonder if he's always like this. How do his employees deal with him? The three women continued to walk slowly in silence down the corridor, each running their recent experiences through their minds. Naomi wanted to get away from the memory of Stefan. It was horrible the way he treated her like a piece of meat. But there was nothing she could have done to get away from him. Scared at first, then feeling frustrated, only anger now remained. At least it was better than feeling sad and confused about how Luca had left. She didn't want to think about Luca either, but knew it would be impossible. A sigh escaped her as they reached her room. She'd much rather just forget about everything that had happened and concentrate on those people here with her now. Auntie Elsa and Kerry were the most important people in her life. Out of the corner of her eye, she could see Kerry still carried a huge grin on her face. Kerry wasn't thinking about what had happened with Stefan. Naomi pressed her shoulder into Kerry's to get her attention. I'm just so glad your dream has come true, Kerry. I'm so happy for you. Then she slowly turned her head to look at Auntie Elsa. Thank you again, Auntie Elsa, for giving Kerry this chance. I know my friend will be the best manager we've ever seen. Both women were smiling at her. Naomi sighed again and, extracting her arm from Kerry's, put her hand on the doorknob, eager to get inside her room. I don't think I've ever longed for a shower as much. I need the water to wash away every spot where Stefan touched me. And I hope neither of you mind, but I need time to feel safe again. I can't remember ever feeling so violated. I can't handle any more shocks today, that's for sure. But as Naomi opened her door, another shock awaited her. On her bed lay the large painting of Ellie Naomi Luca had painted. None of them had suspected he was such a good artist. He'd captured the Ellie exquisitely. Her little trunk was curled up, and her eyes shone with such hope it broke Naomi's heart. The baby elephant looked as though she was smiling at Naomi. Naomi's hand went to her mouth, and tears streamed down her cheeks. Why had Luca left the painting here? Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for liking and sharing my videos, and most of all, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. It means the world. Until next time.